To continue this NFC South discussion, Willie McGinnis, and a perfect guy to join this debate. General manager of the Buccaneers for 5 years, Mark Dominic. You were there when they won the Super Bowl back in 2002, but we really haven't seen much from the Buccaneers as far as the playoffs go since 2007. How do these Buccaneers, after back-to-back 5-win seasons, make a worst-to-first campaign here in 2019?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that we touched about, and obviously it's going to start with the quarterback. I mean, it always does. With Jameis Winston, he's shown flashes of greatness, but the problem has been with his career so far since he's been there is he's never had 2 touchdowns to 1 interception ratio. He's never been able to be that quarterback, and he's got to become that. And we could talk about Humphreys being gone, and she's right. Or, obviously Deshaun Jackson being gone. A big part of that offense is going to be this young receiver, Chris Godwin, who stepped up last year, who's going to now move in the number 2 slot. And I think O.J. Howard will ascend too, but I think the most important thing is to watch certainly what Winston can do and become more consistent in terms of the turnovers, make them disappear. And then second, I think the next biggest thing for them to do, they've got to address the secondary. And the cornerback, they took 2 second-round picks into the cornerback position last year to try to help that area, but they're just getting beaten up too much at the secondary position. And when you're going against Drew Brees, as you know, or you're going against Matt Ryan, and you've got those receiving cores those 2 teams have, or you've got a Cam Newton who's going to be out there with a McCaffrey. But, just in cornerback and in coverage, they have struggled way too many times, and that's going to be the 2 areas that they're going to have to improve upon to try to get themselves back to first place.
And just a quick point. They need to run the football. They need to get the run game going to help Jameis Winston, because according to players that he's played with at the receiver position, he locks on and he forces the ball to certain receivers versus looking or going through his progressions, which is a problem.
And we've seen that offense be prolific with Jameis Winston. We saw the numbers there with Cynthia, but 35 turnovers for that offense obviously has to change. They're all chasing the Saints now, Willie. One of the more fun, if not the most dynamic duos in football, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. No more.
I know. I hate to see that.
Mark Ingram's now a Raven. How does his absence now affect Alvin Kamara?
Well, I think now you talk about, if you're talking about like touch as far as all around, Kamara has been the guy for the last 2 years since they've been together. But if you talk about handing the football off, then yeah, Ingram spelled him a lot with that, which created a good balance for me as a defensive guy. When I'm playing linebacker and I'm lining up, and you see both of these guys in the backfield, you don't really know what's coming. And I think that was to Sean Payton's and Drew Brees' advantage, to have a certain mix of guys that can do a lot of different things within that offense. Now Kamara supposed to be the lead dog, but he already was. He was the guy in that offense. I just think you had the balance you really wanted. And I don't know if you can create that with Murray. I don't think he's as effective as Mark Ingram. I think Mark Ingram brings a little more to the game. He's a little more powerful. He's better in the passing game, out of the backfield, just different dynamics. So I think it's going to be different. I know Kamara's special. I know he can handle it. But what you're seeing now is these running backs kind of get wore down. And all these touches, if you're going to use them like a Lev Bell, you heard, what came out of his camping with him. You're going to ride him because he's so effective and it's so tough on defenses. So now everybody knowing this is your guy.
And to your point, he had 74 more carries in 2018 than he did in 2017. So after winning back-to-back division titles the Saints have, who's the biggest threat from keeping them from three-peating, Mark?
Well, I think it's the Saints themselves, right? I think they've got everything. Well, they've got all the talent there. They've spent all the collateral. They've got a team that obviously can put points on the scoreboard. I think the big thing for them is Marcus Davenport taking another step in his young career. Look, he got out there last year, had 22 tackles, hit 4.5 sacks, and 6 tackles for loss. He's got some good stats. Heck, he created 3 turnovers, which you've got to love that as a defensive player, as a rookie. But because you invested 2 first-round picks in him, you really want to see him take his game to the next level, get to 8 to 10 sacks, continue the pressure on the quarterback. If he can do that, that's going to get that ball back to who? Drew Brees. That means more points for this offense.
Absolutely.
Really quickly.
I agree. The Saints. I said it yesterday when we were talking about it. I said the Saints are their own worst enemy. They got to learn how to just finish games. They've been in a situation where they could have been in the Super Bowl. We saw what happened last year. Everybody focuses on the call, but they still had the ball in overtime driving to win the game when Drew Brees threw an interception. So if you look at what's going on with this team and why they haven't been in the big game, a lot of it's been self-inflicted. Talented team. I think they're special, and I think they understand that. Like, they're a couple plays away from being in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that's coming off a couple of years where the Panthers and Falcons each made Super Bowl runs. It'll be interesting to see how the NFC South plays out. Coming up ahead, amazing how 2 articles and 48 hours can change a team's offseason narrative. Stories of trouble in Titletown have people asking 2 questions. How did it get that bad, and how can it be fixed? After the break, what's the Packers' plan now?